Hello, Kenny.
Yisroel, welcome.
Welcome to episode
You caught
8.
me mid-gulp. Because any podcast with our superstar, first guest, by the way, as they just said, he's like, "You're not opening anything?" And I'm like, I don't even know what I was thinking. So, L'chaim, welcome. Gabe and Shimon Weiss of Shirah Wine. This is very exciting for both of us. When we chatted yesterday, we're like, maybe let's do a guest. You guys were like the immediate choice. So thanks for taking time.
We're honored.
Of your busy drinking schedule.
Thanks for having us.
Kenny, what are you drinking there?
So, oh my gosh, do I love this. I am drinking, I'll show our viewers, but I'll say it also. I'm drinking the 2019 Shirah Riesling. And, I was holding on to this, and I think it's my last one. I just briefly looked through my cellar, and it's starting to show the classic petrol. Oh, it was that good. Acid's great. Boys, another success. And I really hope there's a new Riesling in the pipeline. Yes.
There is. Coming right up, 2023.
I can't wait. I think I don't hide the fact that I'm a huge fan of your white wines and specifically the Rieslings. But this is great. I'm sitting on a 17 still. Have you tasted that recently?
I've had the 19 recently. I haven't had the 17 recently, I don't think.
17? Oh, that was Coquelicot.
That's right. I'm going to test you on all this later.
Oh.
What did you think about that 19?
I don't remember.
How was that drinking? Like, what do you think it is in its evolution?
The 19 Riesling?
Mm-hmm.
I feel that it's starting to show its age. I think it's very enjoyable, but, it's showing a little bit of, evolved flavors, not like very evolved.
Yeah, I think it's almost young.
But it's drinking great.
Acid's holding up well. Well, let's dive in. Yisroel, why don't you start off?
I am just starstruck.
You're in awe. I see that.
I'm in awe. This is absolutely amazing.
You smile on your face.
You guys are rock stars. I tied my chain to them long ago, for better or worse.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that was one of our first ventures out to do a wine event at Kenny eons ago.
That's right.
I did it the next year after that and got stuck. I had too much to drink that night. I missed my flight the next morning.
That was a legendary night. I think we're all banned from that house, by the way, but that's a separate
story.
Oh,
damn. Too much fun for those.
That's when you know you've done it right.
They invited us back. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about how you got started in winemaking, the origins of the Shirah story?
Well, I just followed him, so you got to ask him.
I don't know. I mean, I turned 21 and started realizing I could buy alcohol. And somehow I gravitated toward wine and ended up spending a lot of money and got really into fine wine. And I never really thought of it as a career at all. The idea never even entered my mind. But I was in yeshiva in Muncie, in Ar Sameach, and I used to hang out with one of my friends in his dorm room. He used to have his own home brew. So, just hanging out with him, he was like, my brother, Jonathan Haydu, works at Herzog. So I was like, oh, cool, wow. And that was when it dawned upon me that I should maybe consider doing that. And I called Jonathan. I got in touch with the Herzogs, ended up getting a job at Herzog Wine Cellars. That was in 2004. And then Shimon moved out to California in 2007. And after a year of working with like fine carpentry, which he's, very talented at, he basically just ended up, for various different reasons, ended up getting a harvest job at Herzog with us, and we made some garage wine on the side with our friend Jack Levin, who was also working at Herzog, and that was it. We made really, really good Syrah and Grenache that year, and that was in 2008. And we were like, we want to do this commercially. So the next year, we started Shirah.
So Shirah's first vintage was 2009.
Yes.
But you guys did produce in '08, I think, didn't you? You just said that, right?
In '08, yeah. So in '08, we made garage wine, and we made like 4 barrels worth of it.
Right. Any of that still exist?
We have like a bottle of each or something like that. Very little.
Yeah, it was like a couple bottles.
And immediately in 2009, how many bottles did you produce in the 2009 vintage? About.
So we had I think it was a total of 300 cases for the whole vintage. It was 2 different vineyards of Syrah, and all of it, save for 1 barrel of each from each vineyard, went into the original Power to the People, the '09 Power to the People. And then we kept 1 barrel of each separate and bottled those as single vineyard Syrahs, limited single vineyard Syrahs. So, but I think the total case count was 300 cases. So yeah, just going big right out the gate.
And how does that compare to where you are now?
Right now, I think this past vintage we did 3,000 cases.
Wow.
Approximately.
So that's exponentially. Then you're gonna tenfold 10 years from now, I guess.
Hopefully more. I don't know. We'll see.
Is the goal to continue growing, or do you find a point where like this is what we want to be? Do you want to be a boutique winery, or do you want to eventually be, a large scale winery? Like, what is the?
We definitely want to grow. The question is like, where do we want to like fit comfortably? We definitely don't want to be like a massive, large scale winery. We want to stay a high end, pretty focused production. Focused on the main things that we're kind of what we're doing now. Just kind of scale it up. Maybe add a few more budget friendly options. But we definitely need to grow, and we want to grow. There's so much more that we want to do. Question is, where we draw that line. We definitely don't want to be like a giant winery.
I've always wanted to ask you this question, and so I just ran to my cellar. I have 3 bottles in front of me of yours. I have the 1-2 punch from 2019, which is 55% Grenache, 45% Syrah. I have your Grenache varietal, which is one of my favorite bottles of wine ever, and of course your 2019 Coalition. And I found out that you had 2. I remember that you had 2 Coalitions in 2019, and this is what do you call it?
1 or 2. We just call them Coalition 1 and 2.
Okay, so I think this is Coalition 2, correct?
That was Coalition 1, but it got released second.
So what I wanted to know is that how do you decide which one is going to be part of, which grape is going to be part of your Coalition, your Power to the People, or like which one becomes a variety or a varietal, and which one just remains a blend, or the opposite way around?
Yeah, we go in with an idea of what we want to produce, but that's 2 years before the wines are actually blended into their final blends that's going into bottle. So a lot of things change often. We're looking to get a little bit better at calling the shot from when we're choosing the vineyard to the finished bottle. I think we have some ways to go before we get to that point. So oftentimes, we work with a lot of different vineyards, and the vineyards are constantly alternating. I think as we start to get a little bit more consistent with specific vineyards for specific labels that we're producing, it'll be a little bit more consistent. But right now,
oftentimes we will have an idea of what we're setting out to do, and that'll change by the time it comes to bottling for various different reasons. But we're still pretty close to what we've set out to do. When we're getting into a new vintage, we script up our program, what we want to produce, and we get pretty close. Sometimes we have to make some changes off the bat, and that's where you come up with some really interesting blends, like the Coalition and some other ones. Yeah.
So the blends are happening after fermentation, not during fermentation.
Correct. 90% of the time. Sometimes we do co-ferment stuff with the intention to make those blends straight out of the vineyard. We'll crush them together and ferment them together, but that's pretty rare. We don't usually do that. Usually we're doing everything varietal. And we work with this past vintage, we've worked with 30 different lots, maybe. I don't know, a lot of different lots. And it's many different varietals, many different vineyards, many different lots, all, with different destinations, whether they're going to the mid-level wines, or they're, going to some higher end blends or single varietal blends, or single varietal wines.
So that leads me to the fact that you're talking about that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Shirah always had primary focus on Rhone varietals, right? But we've seen really interesting ones pop up, like Lagrange, which reminds me of ZZ Top Lagrange, Tanat, Terrell-Dago, Monastrell, like all these. Do you I guess it's like when it comes to a football team drafting, there's the general managers that take the approach, we're going to take the best guy available. Or do you have an approach, we want to accomplish this year, and then you go out looking for that? Do you go to the vineyards and what's your best available produce, and then you want to turn that into wine? Or are you seeking to do new things?
We're always seeking to check out what's new and interesting. There's a lot of competition to make the very best Cabernet, and let them do that up in Napa. We got into making Rhone varieties because there was not a whole lot of it kosher when we got into making wine. So that was like the first thing that we kind of were curious to check out. And it's still our first love, and it's still it's hard to beat really good Grenache. It's, like a really peppery Syrah is still one of the most thrilling things for me to taste. But, it's always about getting to taste new things, interesting things. We're just bottling Arnaise. There's only one other kosher Arnaise. We just bottled a Pinot Meunier. I don't know if there's even a single kosher one. It's interesting and it's fun. That's what we're curious to always check out new stuff.
I want to try that Pinot Meunier. I've never had a Pinot Meunier. That's exciting.
It's Pinot Noir. It's not like some super big revelation.
It's fun though.
But yeah, it's good. It's great. And it's fun. It's nice to be able to taste the Pinot Meunier. You know what it is, and some people are, I'm sure, going to absolutely love it.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, some of your Pinot Noirs, the what is it called? Sebastiano Vineyard, that one?
Yeah, John Sebastiano. Yeah.
Love that. Are we expecting return of the orange wines, the port? And my main question, which I've always wanted to ask, and I don't know why I've never asked you, when is the Shirah sparkling wine coming out?
We had big plans for sparkling wine, and we need to be a well-oiled machine before we can start messing around with that. We thought we'd be able to do it many times. We're like, okay, this year we're gonna do it. This year we're gonna do it, and one day we're confident it's gonna happen one day. Orange wine, we actually have stuff that we're gonna be bottling at the end of the month.
And what's that gonna be made from?
Albarino. Very light. It's going to be much. The others were probably like higher alcohol, 13-14% alcohol. Right. This one's I think 11-12%.
I love
it tastes great.
I love your orange wine, so that should be interesting to see a new style of that also. And what did you feel about your experience producing that port style wine and the reaction to in the market to it? I feel like that's such a niche category, and even more so because it's something I thought to ask you also is, and these are kind of two separate questions but related. I think Jews don't understand. And I say Jews, I mean the kosher market, but everyone, like I talk to this always like red wine, red wine, red wine. You guys are producing a lot of white wines nowadays, which makes me very happy. But do you do that out of love, or do you find that the market is really open to it, or is changing and becoming more open to it? And I guess you could relate the port style wine into the same question, because I feel like we all drink wine with other people that keep kosher, and like everyone's always red wine, red wine. Like, how do you feel like these wines fit into that, and do you see that changing?
I mean, Shimon probably has a lot to say about this, but my attitude is that, like you said, people just need to wake up and stop being so boring. We made a lot of white wine. Drink it; it's good.
By the way, that's the headline of this podcast.
Figure out when to enjoy it. It tastes good. It's like you like candy, you'll drink a Coke probably. So why wouldn't you have some port?
No, 100%. I don't do rosés. I don't understand why not.
Yeah, everyone just really wants red wine, and that you see all the wineries, including ours, where the vast majority of what we produce is dry red wine. But we definitely want to have all the offerings. We want to be able to offer everything, and I feel like the people who do like you, who enjoy white wine and rosé and all those other interesting wines. It captures your interest, and you are out there kind of just talking about our wines because of those interesting wines that we produce. So it really just it fills out our portfolio, and it makes even if it's not very popular, it does make what we're offering more exciting. So it's not so easy to sell Grenache, but it does make what we offer more exciting. And I think the excitement around our brand is really important to maintain. So that's why we do 30 different vineyards and 25 different wines and all sorts of obscure varieties and blends. And
I mean, we need to be exciting for the customers. We need to be exciting for ourselves too.
I think
because it's fun for us too.
I think the growing evidence is that we just can't help ourselves. That's the.
He means to say me.
I'm usually trying to when we're putting things down on paper, I'm trying to keep it within reasons, because that's when you see the numbers. But once we get into harvest, and there's this and there's that, and we can't.
Wow. You guys have some of the most interesting labels on your wines. Has anyone ever told you that? And not only labels, but writing as well. Shirah Wine & Co., in association with the United Grapes of Appellations, under service of the Coalition of Excellence, both in quality and craftsmanship. Who writes this stuff, and who designs this stuff?
Somebody did a lot of drugs.
All of our creativity happened, when was that? In 2010? We were creative once upon a time. Now we just, we have the labels, now we just try to make the wine.
So who wrote it? Who designed it? What's the story behind it?
I think that the idea came from my sister. I can't remember exactly. But I think that it starts with the name, and Gabe came up with most of the names. So Gabe came up with the name of Coalition for a blend, and just Coalition of Grapes. I guess that was, he wanted to have a bunch of different grapes as the coalition, and then we sent that to the designer, we sent the name to my sister, who's the designer, and we just spoke about some ideas, and then she came up with that idea. And her husband, who is got a good sense of humor, I think came up with a lot of the wording, which is ridiculous. And then each vintage, there's a paragraph that changes with the vintage, and that's written by a friend of mine who's an English major, and
also related to me.
So you can't actually be good at English and be good at winemaking? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, I just put together some sort of brief description of the wine and the vintage or the story that we're trying to say, and I send it to him, and he composes that whole Narishkeit.
You're talking specific to the coalition, right?
Yeah, specific to the coalition. That coalition label has been composed by a friend of mine. Aside from the consistent stuff that's always out there, that paragraph that changes every year, that's written by a friend of mine.
I did not know that. That's an interesting nugget. But I mean, this style, you have your iconic style like that. I think it's called the poster board style of let's say the 1-2 punch. And of course the 2010 counterpunch, that's the 1-2 punch for those who are watching. The 2010 counterpunch was one of those wines for me that, I feel like I was telling Yisroel earlier that the Weiss brothers' journey and time over time very much mirrors how I got into wine, the wines I was getting into. So I feel like that's why I've so closely followed. And that 2010 counterpunch was one of those wines for me. I was like, wow, it was such a different style than I was used to, stylistically specifically, but also because of the Grenache. How familiar was I with Grenache 15 years ago? I mean, that's been my journey, and but that label stood out so much also stylistically. I think it was and I think it's so underappreciated, the label and the artwork on a wine, and how much that matters to the consumer. So I think you guys nail that. I mean, that's the power to the people. What a cool label that is.
The velvet.
Yeah, the velvet.
It's so good. I love taking off that black paper and touching the velvet. It's just part of the power to the people experience.
Yeah, the amount of, it's expensive, and the amount of production that goes into it is it's a lot. So we tried to get away from it early on, and our customers would not allow it. They're like, no.
I agree.
I save the bottle when I'm done.
Yeah.
I love those bottles.
What's the story behind the power to the people name?
Gabe came up with the name.
To remember what to remember, that's... I'm so 45. I don't remember anymore.
Right. But it's always been a Shirah, right?
It's always been Shirah.
So basically the story behind most of your things is I don't know the story and a lot of drugs. Got it. I see that. Which is
also Gabe generally the way it's happened is Gabe came up with names, and my sister came up with labels.
Yeah. Well,
and the velvet.
And she came up with that idea also. To hot stamp onto flocked material.
And I have to ask you this. Some of your wines, you have wax on top. Does that mean you want us to store it for longer? Is that what you're telling us?
No, it's really just an aesthetic thing. I don't really think that the wax... I don't.
Our understanding from what we've been told from suppliers is that the wax does not enhance aging.
I know. I just wanted to bring that out.
And 1 year you did get, I think that's what you meant, because 1 year you got away from the wax a little bit and you probably got some kickback on it.
Well, not for Power to the People. Most of our other wines we stopped doing wax unless it's one of the high-end wines.
Using wax definitely has a big impact on your productivity, because when you're bottling on a bottling line, you can easily put a capsule on at the exact same time. You're filling a bottle, you're putting the cork, you put the capsule, you put the label, you just tape up the box, and you're done. But when you're waxing it, you can't do it on the bottling line. So you got to take the bottles that are unfinished, put them back in the box, and then when you get around to making a wax project, then you get back to it. It's just a whole
extra process. The actual material of the wax versus the tin capsules is probably less expensive, the actual wax, versus the tin. The real tin capsules are very expensive. But the labor that is required to do the wax, and now we started putting a pull tab also. So all the labor that goes into that is what really racks up the time and the cost.
Hand dipped.
Yeah, hand dipped, and then it's hand dipped, and it's not, and it also needs to it'll start to
set it.
It'll start to drip. So in order to get it to stay that shape, we have to dip it in wax and then dip it in water, and we had 2 people working here, and they get like 40 cases done in a day.
Wow. It's
So
crazy. It's
just really, really, really slow process.
This is well, usually when they do it, they also do the paper on the same time.
I can't remember.
It takes a long time.
I gotta say, I personally hate the wax. Not because I think it looks amazing.
Even with the pull tab,
it's a pain to take it off. We
started putting a pull tab.
You put the pull tab on it, right?
Yeah.
Good point. I think I'm probably, when it's 2-3 bottles in, I'm probably not seeing the pull tab.
Some of the wines have just like a small little wax dip, and that's my favorite because you just peel it right off.
Yeah,
it just pops right off.
Like on Bro Max. I really like that way a lot.
So I have a question in terms of, like we were talking, Yisroel was just asking about the aging thing. I think every winemaker you talk to says their wine, when it's released, is ready, right? I talk to a lot of people about Shirah. It's a common topic of mine. Do you feel, and there's one wine I'm thinking of, do you feel that every wine you produce is ready when it goes out? And I'm not saying like you're, God forbid, releasing wines that aren't ready, but I'm saying, do you feel that your wines are suited to drink now, or are there wines that are meant for cellaring? And if so, what do you think about, and this is a broad question, but what do you think about ageability of your wines? Like, where's the target date of like when you want to drink these wines? And obviously I'm talking more the red wines, even though that 2015 ferment, which still to me is one of the greatest wines I've ever had, and I just had my last one.
I miss that wine a lot.
It's still evolving, and I wish it was more of that, and I wish you made more of that.
What year was that?
Now I'm getting upset, so I don't want to bring that up. But go back to my original question: is the ageability and whether some wines maybe are not even ready right out of the gate. What are your feelings on that?
Okay, so first of all, every wine, every single freaking wine in the world is ready to drink.
Perfect.
Are you ready to drink is the question. Every wine's ready to drink. I don't care how tannic it is or whatever. It's like it's ready. It's just like, so many times you open a bottle and you're like, well, tannins are tight. Should I decant it? Should I age it? Maybe it could be aged longer. Most of the time you can age a wine for so long. You can drink that Riesling another 10 years and it'll still be drinkable. Is it going to taste as good? Probably not, unless you like aged flavors. Some people just don't really care for like youthful flavors. Shimon and I, we put so little emphasis on, are we releasing it and it's ready to drink? And we're still learning. So everybody thinks like Pinot, it's a lighter variety. It's ready much sooner than a Cabernet. We found it to be the opposite. We found it that when we bottle it, for some strange reason, and I don't know the answer why, there's some element of bottle shock. And almost all the time, our Pinot Noirs just seem to taste better after 5 years. And I couldn't tell you why. We age our wines in the past, I can't remember how many vintages, but we've been aging the wines for in some years over 2 years in barrel. That's a long time. Yeah. And they still come out feeling, very structured. And I to understand the aging curve of a wine is bottle number one, and I don't think anybody really understands. We all just make educated guesses about it, and just try to make the best decision of when to open a bottle. Yeah, some of the wines definitely if we bottled it and released it immediately to the market, it probably would taste better, a good 12 months later. I would say that's probably true. But I don't think that almost ever happens that we bottle something and we ship it right off to the customers. It stays in our warehouse for quite some time before we're ready to release.
Yeah, most of the wines, whenever we're ready to release new wines, we go through all of the wines that we have bottled that are aging in bottle and waiting in inventory, and we'll select the ones that we feel are the most ready, or based on the wines that we have currently available, which ones make sense, or the season, like summer season, we try to pick a little lighter wines. So most of the wines that we're picking are quote unquote ready to drink. But every single wine, we taste the wine and we say, this will require a lot of decanting. Or this wine will taste better, like will age. This is the age window that we recommend for this wine. So, and then our wines in general, most of them are made in a way that they're ready to drink relatively quickly. And I would say on average, they're hitting their peak windows 5 to 8 years after bottling. But that's just average. Every bottle's different, and every person's preferences are also different. Some people like wines with, and I personally, every single varietal is different for me, so I prefer Cabernet to be a little bit further into its window, whereas I prefer Zinfandel to be as young and full of bursting fruit as possible. Grenache I like to drink young and fresh, but I also really enjoy how it ages over time. So every single wine will be different, and it's just understanding your individual preferences. Some people like to age wines into oblivion and drink wines that are like, I taste them and I'm like, this wine is dead, and everyone else is like, wow, this is amazing. It tastes like nothing. So there's no fruit left. So I don't know. I personally like to drink wines when they're like perfectly peaked. Some wines I enjoy having them young and full of like fruit flavors. But then I also enjoy, like Grenache, I enjoy young, but I also enjoy the tertiary flavors on Grenache. Whereas Zinfandel, I like, once it gets past that really young fruity stage, I don't really like it quite as much. So some people will be like, oh, I got that Zinfandel. I got one bottle left. I loved it so much. I'm not sure when I'm going to drink it. I'm like, you missed the window.
Yeah.
That's obviously I think Zinfandel, I've kind of come to this conclusion that I do need to wait on it. And I'm not even necessarily thinking of yours, and there aren't that many kosher Zinfandels, right? There's not many at all. You'd think there would be, but there's not. And
Sin is surprisingly less popular than you would think it would be. The official grape of California, and it's not that popular.
It's not that popular.
I mean, there's not really a whole lot of good Zin. We make a good Zin. I've had a good Zin from Herzog. The Forebears Zin, they have like some good vintages over there. Our Zin, I think maybe some other, like maybe Jonathan Haydu has like a good yummy Zin.
But Herzog is a good example, though. Is that
Benyo makes a great Zin, but like some of the stuff that came out of Israel is just like all fruit and no character.
Right.
And then some of the other, like, I don't like Old Vine Zinfandel. I find it to be too herbal. I'm not like into that. It's like I like inky black with blasting fruit.
You don't like that raspberry jam on your tongue?
I want 16.5% alcohol, full on jam, fruit jam bomb.
That's what that Herzog Forebears is right up there. That's exactly.
Yeah, that's good. That's on the money. That's good. And that's what we try to do. And we've made Zinfandels after that, and they just weren't. They didn't really fit that bill, and we didn't bottle them that way. We used whatever they had to enhance other blends, but we didn't bottle them.
And I guess if you're looking at your catalog over the years, that's why you see missing vintages of Zinfandel. You're saying you're producing some every year, but you don't bottle it as a single.
Not necessarily every year, but yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vintages. We've had a gap where either the vineyards that we were working with weren't really up to the level that we wanted to have it at, or the same vineyard didn't really produce the best vintage. We're still searching we're still trying to get back to that, those golden years of 14, 15, 16, 17, those were like solid.
Those
right. So we're not expecting one anytime soon?
Maybe 2023. We'll see. 2022 was, we missed, that was a swing and a miss.
So speaking of a swing and the miss, tell us about some of the challenges. I mean, we heard about some of these vintages that are just go bad on you. But what are some of the challenges of making wine? We want to get into the mud with you. We want to get into the mix.
There's been years where there's just been
well. First of all, everything in the wine industry is a challenge. Everything.
What do you mean? It's like
just
so beautiful and amazing. It's like such an amazing thing. You guys get to live your dream.
Yeah.
It's not such a dream. Well, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to get to make wine and drink wine, but it's a very big struggle.
The wine industry is challenging in every aspect. But you're asking specifically about fruit.
No, not only that. It's a broader.
Well, the financials of wineries are extremely challenging. We still struggle with it. That's why most of the successful wineries are massive, well-oiled machines funded by very wealthy families. So yeah, the finances are challenging. The logistics are challenging, especially for kosher producers. And it's all challenging. And honestly, the least challenging part would probably be the production. Like, making the wine is probably the least challenging part. It's the part that or maybe it's just the least challenging for us because it's the part that we enjoy. All the other stuff we can't stand. We like going to Kenny's house and throwing on a full party, but aside from that, marketing wine and selling wine and running a business, the day-to-day running a business, compliance is a nightmare. State taxes, alcohol taxes, it's like the list never ends. And it's all challenging with a little bit of, it's challenging for every business, for every small business. And then the wine industry has this like little extra like alcohol tax that, gets thrown on top of it. Everyone's got their hand in trying to tax the alcohol industry. A lot of reports. We have to do a lot of reports, gallonage and alcohol levels. So
wow.
There's a lot of challenges that are on the business side, and we really just want to be focusing on the production. So that's honestly, like, when it comes to the challenges of the vineyard and the grapes and the fermentations, like, that's the part that's like actually fun. Like, those challenges are actually fun to tackle. And
what about the actual?
Sorry, Yisroel, go ahead.
What about the actual? Like you said, how many vintages are you throwing out? Like, what are you tossing? Like, what percentage?
It's very low. Usually, it's extremely low. We usually have ways to either blend it away or send it off to Twin Sons or something. If it's not Shirah level. No, the wines are good. Like, Grand Select is like, if we felt like something didn't make Brodu level, but there are definitely, like, some vintages are very, very challenging. 2011 was a very challenging vintage. It was a lot of rain. 2020 was an extremely challenging. 2015 was a challenging vintage. There was almost no fruit available. We couldn't even get Syrah down in Santa Barbara County.
Syrah or Cabernet.
That was 15. 2020, it's just like with the fires and the heat spikes, it was very, very difficult vintage to work with. every year there's a curveball. You're talking about, grapes that grow in a field. Anything can happen. And as far as like fermentations go and things going off in the cellar, that's extremely rare. That it should go so bad that it's not able to be fixed or salvaged or anything is extremely rare.
In general, we're usually able to, usually the worst case scenario for us is we pay a high price tag for something that we have high expectations for, and it doesn't really quite live up to that expectation, and we have to kind of move it into the middle tier or maybe even the low tier, or just figure out how to blend it away. Like for instance, the 2022 Zinfandel, it didn't really deliver what we wanted for a single varietal Zinfandel, but it had a lot of character and it had a lot to offer to a blend. It just didn't really hold up to the past single varietal Zinfandels that we produced from Whale Rock Vineyard. So that's like, and we pay a high price tag for that, so that's a disappointment. Very rarely do we have something that we just have to like get rid of. It's happened a couple times here and there where we just had like a full tote that we needed to just not bottle. Was not good.
So the Shirah name, I wanted to ask this before, but I didn't get to. I remember hearing that a Kabbalist helped with that name. But the name Shirah, what's the story behind that? 'Cause
So actually, I left out part of the history. So in 2005 harvest, when I was working at Herzog, Jonathan Haydu and I were, I guess you can say, sharing an apartment, and we did we did everything together. So we were like, hey, let's make some wine on the side. And 2005 was a very big crop. I reached out to a winemaker friend, not a non-kosher winemaker in California, and I was like, hey, let us know if you see any grapes available, especially Syrah. We'd love to get some Syrah. And he called me very shortly after, I think within like a few minutes, and he was like, hey, I found a vineyard for you. The grapes are free. You got to go pick it yourself. It was a really good vineyard. It's actually been used by some really good wineries. I'm trying to remember the name. Alamo Creek, was it? Alamo Creek so. Vineyard. It is in San Luis Obispo County, and it was like late November, which is quite late. But they just had extra fruit hanging. And I went there on a Sunday with Jonathan Haydu and another guy that was with us, Yoni Friedman. And we spent the whole day just picking a bin full of grapes. We brought it down with us and fermented it. And then Jonathan Haydu and Yoni Friedman moved to Israel and left me with a barrel of wine to bottle, which I did. But yeah, I knew this guy who I can't remember his name. He was a holy Jew from Pico Robertson. He actually passed away. He moved to Israel and he passed away a few years ago. But when I was Chaim Mekel, I think his name was Chaim Mekel, and he was like he was Israeli. He was like a Baal Tshuva. He used to be at the Kabbalah Center, and then became like very Haredi, and so I like whatever. I was like, we're making the Syrah. What do you think? What should we call it? He said, call it Shirah. So that was how we got the name Shirah. And the label's design that we made, I actually had my sister design a label for this 2005. It was 24 cases of wine, and it was literally garage wine. It was aged in a barrel in Yoni Friedman's garage. I remember to bottle it, we had to like I racked it into like a kiddie pool or something. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun making it, and the wine came out delicious. The wine was great.
Sanitized the kiddie pool.
It had a little bit of plastic in it.
Yeah, it might actually have some plastic flavor. I remember we didn't even have topping wine for it. I would get bottles of wine. I remember sometimes like I had like some wine from Jeff Morgan, some like Red Sea, and I would top it with bottles of Red Sea. We topped it with good wine. And it was only in barrel for I think in barrel for less than a year even. I think it was like 9 months. But that label design was like Shirah, and then like Syrah, Alamo Creek, blah blah blah, and that style ended up becoming our brand style.
From the winemaking perspective, or from the label?
Should I go grab a bottle?
Winemaking. The winemaker for that wine was Jonathan Haydu.
Oh, John. Who are your biggest influences in winemaking? I know John was involved with some of the other stuff, but what about Craig? I mean, who were influences on your winemaking?
I mean, Jonathan Haydu and Jeff Morgan were early ones. Oh, that's the wine.
No way.
Oh wow, that's it. Yeah, and that is the style.
Don't drop it.
An OG Shirah.
Yeah, 05, there it is.
Every time Shimon and I are like, "Oh, so when should we open?" We're like, "I don't know."
There's one bottle left?
There's another one. There's two.
Ooh, there's 2 bottles.
Yeah.
We're auctioning it starting at $10,000.
Right. Right. You're starting too low.
Jonathan Haydu, Jeff Morgan were influences. I definitely learned a lot from Joe Hurleman of blessed memory, and we definitely learned a lot from Craig Winchell. Stylistically, influence-wise, I don't think that we're just trying to figure it out still. We don't want to get into anybody's style. We want to figure out wine on our own. There's still a whole lot to learn. Every year I'm learning more and more. Technology, science is constantly evolving about wine. So it's still a big learning experience for us.
We learned a lot. We learned a lot along the way. We before we moved here to Oxnard, we were in Santa Maria and a custom crush. A lot of small producers like us in one really big building. So that was a great environment. We were able to really just we learned get a lot of advice on the fly from any number of really talented winemakers. So that was a pretty big influence. Oh, and Kenny, I wore this hat for you. Just for you.
Yeah, thank you. For those who can't see it, it's a Bengals hat. I am not a Bengals fan. Could be worse. Could be a Steelers
Baltimore
hat.
did pretty good last year. Baltimore sent Joe Burrow to his early retirement list.
But I'm a baseball fan. This is our time. Baltimore Orioles. I waited a long time for that, boys. I'm assuming you guys are Mets fans, or you have Mets fans feel to you? No,
we're from Cincinnati. We're
Cincinnati New Yorkers. Cincinnati.
Well, we grew up in New York, but we were born in Cincinnati, and we moved at a young age to New York. So, but our sports alliances are Cincinnati.
Bengals, Reds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hopefully we'll see you in the series this year.
We're not really into baseball. It's mostly just the Bengals that we're into.
If the Reds do really good, we'll get a little bit more to
Right, of course.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. If the Reds are doing anything notable, then we're like, okay, we're Reds fans. But otherwise, it's
well, a Bengals hat is not as offensive as a Steelers hat where I come from, and you probably feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
What are the plans for Shirah going forward?
Well, we're gonna the door's unlocked for whenever you're ready to come visit, and that's the next thing we're looking forward to.
And what about people purchasing? What's the best way that you like for people to purchase your wine?
Go to our website, shirahwine.com, Shirah with an H, and join our wine club. That's the all access wine club. Get in there. You don't have to think about it. The wine shows up.
I think about it. I'm a long-time member, long-time customer.
Yeah, you give it a lot of thought. Yeah, but, we have about half of our members are like really emotionally involved, like Kenny, and then the other half are just like passive. Send it to me, and then like. Right. They're like, whenever you see them, they're like, "Oh, I had a really great bottle."
Right.
That's as much as they know.
I spend way too much time thinking about my order, worrying about my order. By the way, props on you guys have improved the website, improved the ordering experience. I think it's improved a lot. So nice.
Lots of work to go. Lots of work to still do over there, but yeah, thankfully much better system than we.
Heading in the right direction there for sure. Because, I think from a wine club perspective, I think it offers unique wines and good value because you guys are not crazy with the pricing. And I know you mentioned earlier you wanted to maybe even do some lower cost wines. That would be amazing. So people have more access to your wines, more affordable wines. Oh, did you say that? Am I making that up? Was that a dream?
Yeah, I think that's when we're looking at growth. That's
Yeah.
when we're looking at like a lot of growth in quantity. That would probably be a nice chunk of it. Just coming up with, right now our reds are ranging from 35, and the new price is 40, but from that range all the way up to like $80 per bottle, 40 to 80, 35 to 80. So just like do something in the tier right below that, and like the low to mid 20s or something like that.
That's an almost like nowadays it's so hard to find really good wine in the 20 to 30 range. That's sad, but it's true.
It's really unfortunate because that's the opportunity. I feel like that's where you are able to capture people's interest,
Right.
People who are really just starting to explore. And if you're looking at the non-kosher market, that's the golden zone, and the kosher market is just like the prices are a little bit different. The tiers are a little bit different. The line.
Why do you think that is?
I definitely think that. I think the main reason is not that the kosher wine market is high, is that the non-kosher market is so saturated that it's lower. There's just so much competition that the prices are just need to be much more competitive.
It's so much easier for the non-kosher market to produce wines at that price point. It has nothing to do with kosher certification or anything like that. It's just, they're able to rely on bulk market. And like Shimon said, it's just the dynamics. There's a lot. It's very saturated.
Would you say that the non-kosher market does not have wineries as small as yours? Like a small winery is much bigger than yours in the non-kosher market?
Oh no, there's a lot of producers that are doing similar to what we're doing. I would say, I think that we're still on the small side, even for garagiste boutique wineries. We're still on the quite small side. But there's everything. There's people who have just a hillside at their house that they make wine from and commercially. And then there's,
it's probably not their full-time job.
Yeah, there's in California there's a lot. California it's I'm not sure like other countries, but California happens to be pretty easy because there's so many resources. You could go to any number of vineyards within stone's throw. If you live in wine country, you can go to any number of vineyards within stone's throw and buy half a ton, very small amounts. There's custom crush facilities. There's, you could get a small warehouse in many different places. And so there's quite a scene for wineries our size in California. And I think the whole West Coast, up in probably in Washington and Oregon.
Well, my parting words are bring back the ferment.
I wish.
We'll have to go up to Mendocino and replant it.
Replant it, yeah. The year after we got the fruit, they were like, it was so not commercially viable for them. They tore out.
Boys, you got to make it happen. I don't ask. Actually, I do ask a lot, but make it happen. And also get your tuchses back to Baltimore. That's
and to Montreal.
One thing at a time.
Okay.
What about you guys coming here?
Yes,
we're gonna come.
Jim, we should go to Montreal. We'll go. We should go in the winter. We'll go snowboarding.
Oh, we'll go to
Tremblant Blanc with Rabbi Bernath.
Exactly. Oh, there's some great winter sports here.
We should.
And the summer is beautiful too. People think it's cold all year round. It's actually really beautiful here now.
They're playing the Ravens.
Yeah. Plus, we have great breweries here. I know you guys
wine tasting flesh.
We have unbelievable breweries here, by the way, in Baltimore.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So Baltimore, like Ravens breweries, I can't offer you good weather or safety, but Yeah,
But you could offer us beer and football.
that's right. Beer and football. That's what we're good at.
Gabe and Shimon, on behalf of the Jewish people, thank you for producing incredibly, incredibly great, good quality, good wine consistently. The kosher market, there's not enough opportunities to thank you for all your hard work and for providing something to the kosher market. Grapes that so many people have never tried before. I've never had a non-kosher bottle of wine in my life, and grapes that I've never tried before, besides for just a few, you and Jonathan, and that's about it. The Tanat is an example, and just continuously, providing something for us that we can truly appreciate and help build and develop our palates. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate the kind
I
words.
think you guys are rock stars, and we wish you the most success and continue, because we can't lose you guys. We need you in the market. We need you. Thank you for being our first guest. Looks so exciting. Oh, man.
And to all our listeners, support Shimon and Gabe. We want to keep them around as long as possible. And, it doesn't happen by itself. The only way that the winemakers can continue making great wine is if you and I, all of us, is if we support them.
Yeah, thankfully we got fans out there, we got supporters, and it's growing. So, Baruch Hashem.
ShirahWine.com, SHIRAH wine.com. Go buy.
Get on it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Rabbi Yisroel.
All right, guys.